Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining me again today for another session of Me Programming Daily. I hope you have your coffee ready or whatever the drink of your choice could be. And let's transition to the code view. Now, on my agenda today is a quick explanation of the cause for the issue that we experienced yesterday. Oh, sorry. Let me just start the music. And the issue was that I was trying to link IDs that were not present in the map. Remember, the start and the end terminator are not present in the map. Therefore, the rendering function just politely ignored them, and it only drew this one. But what I did since then is I added this action to the diagram. The ID appeared in the map, and then we can see the connections. Obviously, the connections are not your proper drakon style connections, but at the very least, they give an idea of a connection being present. Now, what is incorrect, though, is the mere fact that we can have a connection from this action, even though we can't see it because it overlaps with the bounding box, and a connection to the previous block. We can only have one. So before we dive into the proper goal of today's session, I just wanted to acknowledge something. Like I should have spent more time celebrating during the last session, because we finally have a collection of IDs or pairs of IDs that simulate the connections between icons. I've been refactoring the code for the last week to achieve that, and yet here we are. Again, not exactly correct drakon connections, but they give an idea of the connection being present. Now, what is on my list for today is, first of all, to disable the troubleshooting mode, because it is distracting a little bit. Also, while the environment starts, I started experimenting with, see this notification failed to run HLS. So naturally, because I have the Haskell toolchain running in a container, Z, which is my text editor, cannot find Haskell language server. I've never really used Haskell language server, and what I started doing off camera, just as an experiment, was to install the Haskell language server in a container and maybe configure Z to use that language server so that my Haskell extension that I'm using works properly. It would be very nice, however, if you look at my Docker file, I'm using Alpine, which is not the latest. And if you try to install Haskell language server here, it fails. And Haskell language server is only present in the latest version of Alpine, if I'm not mistaking anything. So I'll hold off upgrading GHC and Alpine for a while longer. I might report the issue to, I don't know, Alpine maintainers, saying that the package is causing me problems. But this is something that I'm thinking of doing. Enabling Haskell language server that runs in a container, and yet it communicates with the locally installed Z. Now, troubleshooting mode should be off. So I planned for this session to be kind of short. So we see the connections are there, so I can just go to the main function and comment them out. I don't want them to be distracting me. Okay, that's much better. So I'm planning for this session to be a little bit shorter than usual, so that it is only dedicated to sort of rethinking what the type could be, this type. See, and specifically starting with the fork ID, with the fork. Because the way I understand the drakon rules is that transplantation and grounding of liana means moving these connections around, but only a certain number of connections, or only certain connections. So you can't move a connection that's on this skewer. You can only move this one. But if you're in a fork that's embedded deeper beside the skewer, you can move both of its branches, and both are considered lianas. So what I'm thinking is to slightly change this type skewer block, and specifically fork, in order for it to reflect that. Skewer block. Let's call it just new skewer block. And this time it will only have a new fork, which will have to retain its ID. And for now, let's not worry about the origin. Let's imagine this is provided by the user, so the user has no understanding of the origin. So here, the new skewer block would have an either a collection of skewer blocks or an ID. And let's see if this compiles. Yeah. Here. Okay. And then a dedicated validation function would determine whether a skewer block is in a legal state or not. An illegal state would be a connection is formed with this ID for a non-liana. So for now, let's just assume that we have these. And that would be it. Let's also do deriving show. And that is largely it. So I would love to be able to switch my render function for fork action. We don't need that. Question, no, and fork. I would love to be able to redo this fork to be able to render either the left-hand side as a list of skewer blocks or as a connection to an existing already rendered block. Same with the right-hand side. For now, I don't want to touch this implementation yet because this new type is still very fresh and it might change. For now, though, let's experiment with this for a minute. In main, let's do this. Oh, it's a new fork. Oh, I hope your day is going well so far. By the way, where I live, it's still spring. Well, the spring is still starting, I meant to say, but it's very cold today. Okay, it looks like it's working, but these warnings are not something that I enjoy. So maybe let's get rid of them. We can reduce drakon diagram 27. See, many things will change with these IDs getting rolled into the skewer blocks. So I want to introduce that change very cautiously. Okay, now these warnings. May 96. Okay, so we don't need skewer block. We will need a new skewer block though, just to test. No, we do need that. It's changed its mind. So say I want to construct a new fork. Where the origin is gone. And let's keep in mind that in my new type, we still use old skewer blocks, but you know it. It's easy to correct. And also, I do not want its origin here. That way, I can change these types to just new skewer block. wonder why it is redundant. Anyway, let's fix main first. No. Oh, this is not action, it's new action. Oh, so that is going to be left. And then let's see what the show implementation does. Okay, we have fork ID. Yeah, it works naturally. And let's say we want to replace this with right. And all of a sudden we don't need this list. We can just use an ID, something random. And let's call it, we need to refer to an existing ID. So this will have to be carefully validated in the future. But for now, let's say I want to go back to action 200. And it does work. Okay. Now let's see these warnings. To map, we do not need. We don't need that. Okay, so I think we've achieved mostly what I wanted to achieve today. Now, before we end the session for today, let me also see how that would impact the render function. First of all, type classes. Render function will have to accept a diagram and a map of skewer blocks. Maybe not. let's do let's call it new render because we already have render prime. And now let's try not to add the question to the new skewer block, because question on its own should not be a skewer block. So a quick implementation for action. Okay, let's trust Copilot here. And let's see. Oh, there are already problems. The origin. Is not present. So Copilot assumes that it's 0, 0, which is not correct. So we would also need it a new type called, and I'm having a big time deja vu, positioned new skewer blocks. We used to have positioned data types, and here they would get an origin, oh, it should be the same. The only difference is that we would give them now an origin. So this is something that we would accept from the customer or from the caller. This is something that we would create ourselves based on positioning. And this is something that we would render. So let's start wrapping today's session up by providing a hook for the next session. And I'll also take a note of this. It's not imported. And it should be let's also sort out this. It still works. Just a sanity check of this. No changes. So I think we can wrap it up for today here. And during the next session, I'll try to figure out, if time allows, how to render positioned new skewer block. Keeping in mind that action does not really change how it's rendered, but the fork is going to change dramatically. And we no longer will use these where are they defined? Render extra connections. Or render additional connections. Render additional connections. That will have to be handled differently, but this we'll figure out in the next episode. For now, I thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.